Hey, court reporters, Lynn Spears is hitting back after Britney Spears sent her a cease and desist letter. And listen, as much as I love Britney and I'm generally team Britney, the way that Britney acted after sending that cease and desist letter was appalling, and Lynn Spears had every right to call it out. And call it out they did, as in Jamie and her legal team, in their response to the cease and desist letter. So let's take a look at it line by line. So Jamie's attorneys from Friedman and Tadelman responded by saying, "Dear Matt, I represent Lynn Spears in connection with your cease and desist letter dated January 17th, 2022, concerning her book entitled Things I Should Have Said. As an initial matter, in your letter, you state that Britney is going to take the, quote, high road. However, just today, your client posted vile statements on social media concerning Lynn. These include, but are not limited to, statements such as Britney should have slapped you and your mama right across your effing faces and whipped your ass and popped the SHIT out of your ass. As you know from previous social media posts, Lynn has had her children violently threatened, and we have no doubt that these new intimidating and threatening social media posts will lead to similar threats of violence. To be clear, social media posts that include cyberbullying, which cause death threats to Lynn and her family, is neither the high road nor anything that will be tolerated." I completely agree. You know, I went over Britney Spears' cease and desist letter to Lynn with an attorney friend of mine, Stephanie from Wine and Chill, in my video yesterday, which you'll find on my channel. But now today, and we talked about how disjointed the cease and desist was, and kind of just, I don't know, it didn't seem like there was anything very like based. It seemed more like an open letter. And so now for Britney to go from that, you know, talking about all the damage and hurt that she experienced over the years, which is very valid and very true, to now threatening Jamie like the same day that cease and desist comes out, it just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any kind of sense, and she should not have gone there, you know. And it is true what Lynn's attorneys are saying, which is that, you know, every time Britney Spears opens up about her experience with Jamie and Lynn, the whole family, they start to get threats and everything like that, you know. Which, listen, it's not Britney's responsibility. It's her fans' responsibility to not go after these people and threaten them. But now for Britney to go off the rails and literally talk about how she should have beaten up Lynn and the mother and everything like that, it's just not a good look with what it is that she's got going on, you know, the cease and desist and stuff, and her claiming to want everything to just be quiet. It doesn't look good. And I'm glad that Lynn's people called it out in their response letter, even though I'm pro Britney. You know, you do have to look at things objectively as possible anyway, at the end of the day, and call your faves out or your people out when they are doing wrong. So let's continue along with what it is that they are saying. It was also disappointing to see your letter plastered all over the media, as it would have certainly benefited all of the people involved and their respective children if there was a private forum to try and redress any grievances. I find that interestingly ironic, because guess what we're doing? Reading a copy of this cease and desist, calling out another cease and desist for being public. They're all public at the end of the day, right? So a bit ironic there on Lynn and her attorney's parts, but I digress. They continue on to say, your letter claims that Lynn's book is potentially unlawful, defamatory, misleading, and has outrageous claims in it, yet you admit that neither you nor your client have actually read any portion of the book. Frankly, it is impossible to understand what you are requesting my client to cease and desist from doing, since the letter fails to specify any legal wrongdoing whatsoever. Again, another point for Jamie and her team. Britney, you can't, complain about something being all of these things and then in the same letter admit to have never read it. Right? Like, that makes your argument invalid off the bat, in my humble opinion. And it is true that Britney's cease and desist was all over the place. It seemed like just like an open letter rant versus an actual cease and desist, laying out what it was that someone was doing wrong and how it was damaging the other person. So later on, her attorneys say, your claim that Lynn has no right to tell her story is not only insensitive, but not supported by the law. Lynn is a member of the Spears family. Your letter ignores a critical fact. Lynn has suffered through her own experiences and her own trauma. Had you taken the time to read the book book prior to sending your letter, you would know that the book is not about Britney, but instead about Jamie Lynn's own experiences growing up in the same family and describing what life for her was like as part of that family. In fact, even where Britney is referenced in the book, she's described as a kind, supportive, and protective sister whom Jamie Lynn looked to as a second mother. As you and your client are well aware, Jamie Lynn grew up in a family where she was constantly silenced and never allowed to have a voice. To send a letter attempting to constrain her right and ability to speak the truth only re-traumatizes a very core wound that she suffered from her entire life. That I don't know if I agree with, because from a lot of the excerpts in the book, Jamie doesn't talk about Britney as this kind and loving person. She talks about being scared of her, Britney wielding knives and this and that and being erratic and all of this stuff. So I think she's kind of rewriting history a little bit there. I'm not reading the book because I don't want to fund Jamie Lynn now speaking out 13 years later in order to make money instead of speaking out for free when her sister was suffering, right? But from the reviews that I saw on Amazon, people who did pick up the book said that she talks about Britney way too much in it rather than herself. So I'm siding with Britney on that point. Now, in the final 2 paragraphs, they're saying, as you are further aware, Jamie Lynn has wanted nothing more than to help her sister in any way that she can and to offer the same love and support her sister gave her when she was young. That I don't believe, because, you know, Jamie had 13 years to speak out and she never did until now that Britney is free. She could have used her voice to help Britney a long time ago, and she never chose to do that. She's claiming she did stuff behind the scenes, but why is it that you could do stuff behind the scenes at that time, but now all of a sudden you've got a book and you want to say things in the public, in the press? You know, you did your GMA interview, you did your Call Her Daddy interview, you've got God knows what other interviews lined up. So I don't believe it. I don't. She had a voice and she just never used it until it was beneficial to herself. So again, had you read the book, you would have noticed the uncanny similarities shared between the 2 sisters and their experiences. Give me a break. Jamie Lynn hopes that there will be no further postings or inflammatory letters being sent to the media. Beyond telling the truth and denying the allegations against her as a mother, Jamie Lynn needs to protect her children and cannot continue to be subjected to death threats and other postings insinuating physical violence against her and her family. Jamie Lynn supports Britney, and as always, she hopes she can get the healing, peace, and freedom she rightfully deserves. Blah, blah, blah. And then he signs off. That, I don't know. Listen, I don't like that they're blaming Britney for this. Britney is not responsible for the way her fans choose to react. You know, that's her fans individually who are responsible for it. And the same could be said of Jamie. Jamie has spoken up about Britney now. She's claimed that she was scared of Britney and all of this stuff. Who knows if Jamie's 2 or 3 fans have gone and tried to attack Britney and her kids and threatened them as well. You know, like, she's putting stuff in the public just like Britney's putting stuff in the public responses, right? She's doing all of these interviews. Somehow that's okay, but Britney can't speak out against her. I don't know about that. I would love to see Jamie Lynn do an interview for this book without bringing up Britney Spears, if what the attorneys are claiming is true, right? About this being just as much Jamie's life as it is Britney, and she's mainly talking about herself. Do an interview and don't bring up Britney Spears one single time, and we'll see just how little of Britney is mentioned in your book then, girl. Anyway, you guys, what do you think about this messy family drama? It's sad, right, to see a family drama play out like this in the public, but it is what it is at this point. Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.